Hey everybody, welcome back to another Decktech. I've got Sephiroth Fallen Hero here. I call this one Sephiroth Living Weapon. I originally, when I was going to build this deck, I built it for a friend of mine. And I was going to initially take this Sephiroth Boros commander, which is red-white, and do kind of like Enchantress with it. That seemed fun because he cares about modified creatures. But when I looked at EDH rec, I immediately fell in love with the idea of using actual like living weapon creatures because they're immediately modified creatures as soon as they hit the board. So this is a highly aggressive deck. We have 25 regular ass creatures that help equipments, care about equipments, do a bunch of different stuff based on like take advantage of the fact that it cares about their power getting bigger or they make themselves modified, etc. Plus, we have those 25 creatures, and then we go back to our old categories. 11 living weapon creatures. So this is a very aggressive deck. We have board wipes in here. We have ways to make them asymmetrical, so our stuff lives, and then we can use our huge beaters to win. So the whole living weapon thing is a mechanic named after. It's not. They don't all do living weapon, but I named the category after that because the original one from the. I don't know if it came out in the original Mirrodin, but it was when Phyrexia was introduced when it was the war on Mirrodin for it. And they create a germ token that's a 0/0, so all of them add toughness so that the germ token can live. And usually other abilities, but it snaps on immediately, so the token lives, but it makes it immediately modified. So we have a bunch of those. We have the literal living weapon mechanic that makes the germ. We have from Mirrodin, which makes a 2/2 rebel. And then what is the other one? Job select. We got job select from the Final Fantasy set. Obviously, the set the commander's from. I'm so good at this. And it makes a 1/1 hero that snaps on the thing immediately. Obviously, we can throw any number of these equipments onto our commander. Doesn't really help him, but they're good equipments. They make him do stuff. And we can snap them on other tokens that the deck makes, but we also have another important card, Gold Warden's Gambit, which is a 6 colorless, 2 red, not ideally actually 6 colorless, because it has affinity for equipment, which means it costs 1 colorless less for each equipment you control. And it makes 5 2/2 rebels. They gain haste till end of turn, and then for each of those tokens, you may snap an equipment to it. So this is a way to, if we've been board wiped or we've had to hit the reset button and we just have a bunch of equipment lying around, we can hopefully pay 3 mana because it makes 5 guys, 5 equipments. It could be 2 mana, but minimum maximum value out of it, 3 mana for the 5 guys that it snaps onto. But it's a way to turn our equipments back on and then maybe get our commander back out because he's able to recur so easily. It's great. But let's actually go over what he does. Sorry, I was so excited to talk about my journey with how I built this deck. But so Sephiroth Fallen Hero is from the Final Fantasy Commander deck. I think it's the Mardu one or the Naya one. I don't remember. But he's 3 colorless, red and white for 7/5 with Genova's cells. And whenever he attacks, you can put a cell counter on target creature. And until end of turn, each modified creature you control has base power toughness 7/5. Which is bonkers. Because like a lot of our living weapon stuff, the most expensive one is 5 mana. Yeah. Most of them are 1, 2, 3 mana. So, you're paying 2 mana for this batter bone, which is plus it's a 1/1 vigilance lifelinker. So it's an 8/6 vigilance lifelinker for 2 mana with Sephiroth. It's bonkers. It's absolutely crazy. I fell in love with that idea because I love living weapon, and it kind of makes it all of those like spawn a dude snap equipment cards. It makes that whole category of like mechanic like a keyword for this deck, and it's so cool. Because he is so important to how the deck operates. Thankfully, they stapled onto him in his design a kind of a way for us to cheat that commander tax. So, the Reunion is his ability, and it's 3 colorless and sacrifice a modified creature we control, and we can return Sephiroth Fallen Hero from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. And that's an activated ability, so you can snap that off at the end of your opponent's turn and functionally give your Sephiroth haste by having come in at their end step. It's very cool. We talked about the living weapons. We don't need to go over all of them, just like basically what they are. We can talk about some of the finishers. One of my favorite guys, the first thing I actually thought of when I first saw Sephiroth get spoiled during spoiler season for Final Fantasy, was this Swiftblade Vindicator in our finishers. The 2 mana 1/1, but it has double strike, vigilance, and trample. Even if our commander's ability, all it does is put a cell counter on this guy, it's a 7/5 double strike, vigilance, trample. That's scary. We got Grim Reaper's Sprint as a way to just close the game and just keep smashing face. It costs 3 less to cast if something died this turn, which is great. So you can cast this on like your second main phase if you had a pretty profitable combat. And then you attack. It enters. You untap everything. And if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase, and the creature gets +2/+2 in haste. That the 2/2 haste is nice. Not primarily what we give a shit about for the card. And we're definitely doing for our draw mechanics. I was really proud of finding. I love this Tawashi guide bot. Proud of finding. Like I'm sure a lot of people know about it, but it's a 4 mana 2/1. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter because you can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. But you can pay 4 and draw a card, and it costs 1 less to activate for each modified creature you control. And I mean, that's all we do is just crap out modified creatures. Be it snapping a 1/1 counter on them, a shield counter, all kinds of stuff. So this is basically just going to be tap, draw a card. And that's awesome. We got SRAM, classic. Whenever you cast or equipment vehicle, draw a card. Pure Steel Paladin, whenever equipment enters, draw a card. Also lets us snap our equipments for free. I built it with a budget, so it's $48, but the any printings, excuse me, is $38. I want to get around 40. I actually want to get under 40, so I nailed it. So I couldn't afford. Unexpected Windfall. So good. I did not have that written down. I'm very happy that I remembered. And then we got Aranya, Heart of the Spider, which is whenever you attack, you get a +1/+1 counter on target creatures. It helps pump our stuff and make modified creatures as well. And remember, it's important to remember that because this deck has many attack triggers, you generally want to have Sephiroth's trigger hit last. Um, so you stack all your things to put counters on stuff, and then Sephiroth goes, okay, modified things, they're 7/5s now. But this also says whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, we get to Impulse Draw, which is to exile the top card of your library, and you can play that card this turn. So, real fun stuff there. Artifacts can be fragile because they can get blown out. So we do have a lot of recursion in that we have Wake the Past, which lets us return all artifact cards from our graveyard to the battlefield, and they gain haste. That doesn't give the tokens haste, which isn't as cool as I wanted it to be, but it could still be alright. We got Sun Titan, which will... Oh, and this is 5 colorless red and white for sorcery. Sun Titan, which is a 4 colorless white, 6/6 vigilance giant. I love the Titan series of creatures. Whenever it enters or attacks, you can return a permanent with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Many of our things are 3 or less, especially our living weapons. Smile at Death is at the beginning of your upkeep, return a card up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this won't see our living weapons, but it'll at least see our other creatures, and some of our creatures can return stuff. So, and then we got Luminous Broodmoth, which both brings our things back and brings them back modified. It's great. Gotta love it. We got all kinds of ways to protect stuff because this was... Prices are wild. I could have swore this was cheaper than Swiftfoot boots. I don't know. I'll have to look. But we had Champion's Helmet instead of Swiftfoot boots because we wanted the Hexproof and like the buff, really, because the haste doesn't... Oh, we do want necessarily the haste of the Sephiroth. But let me look. We'll do this live right here. Oh, they look comparable. 255. I love that it throws the glass slippers in there. Let's do that. 255, 229. We can do that. I can make that switch now. Cool. We have Swiftfoot Boots, which is the classic 2 mana 1 equipment, or 1 to equip. Creature gets hexproof and haste. And that brings us to a... Oh, it actually brings us down to a 36. Look at that. Yeah. Anyway, so some of the fun things for protection I love. I got a Conqueror's Flail in here because we care about equipment. So this is equipment that helps protect us. It's 2 colorless, and it gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. So we can just throw this on our commander, and it gets a +2/+2 buff, which is nice. But as long as it's attached to a creature, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. And that keeps all those pesky blue players the hell away from our stuff. Leave us alone. Adept Water Shaper is going to be one of the good ways to give our creatures indestructible to one-side our board wipes if we can't, if we don't have anything else to trigger, because we have some damage-dealing board wipes to sweep the board. So this will help if our things don't have vigilance to tap them and one-side board wipe. To potentially, if we have the mana, set up for the Grim Reaper Sprint and do some more damage. Oh, I wanted to highlight Sid for the fact that he ramps our equipments out and he can fetch our equipment from the graveyard. Another fun endgame guy is Krenko 10th Street Kingpin. He's worth every penny of that 346. And whenever he attacks, you get a +1/+1 counter on it, which is great because he modifies himself immediately. So you have him attack and Sephiroth attack at the same turn. What you will do is put Sephiroth's trigger on the stack first. put a cell counter on Kranko. Now Kranko's modified. Kranko's trigger goes on the stack. He gets a +1/+1 counter, so he's an 8/6. Then you get number of +1 goblins equal to his power, 8 goblins. Delicious. It's so much fun. How can you not? And then we got all kinds of ways to throw counters on a bunch of stuff. One of my favorites is Mikaeus the Lunarch, because you can functionally do this as like a 2-mana spell if you can give him haste. And just 2 mana, boom, plow counters on everything. So he's X and white for 0/0, and he enters with X +1/+1 counters. And you can tap him to put a +1/+1 counter on him. Or you can tap him to remove a counter from him and put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. So we have ways in this deck to do just mass counters, so that helps with the some of our token strategies to boom, turn those into modified creatures quickly and easily. Couple hilarious, though. Ooh, I'm gonna slap you over to burn, because that is primarily why you are here. So our burn plan is fun. We have Barrett Wallace. We have several cards in here I kept themed because my friend really loves Final Fantasy and Sephiroth is their favorite. So, but I also wanted to have a lot of fun stuff, and I'll go over a little bit more of the themey choices of things after I'm talking about the mechanics. So he's 3 colors and a red for a 4/4 with reach. And whenever he attacks, it deals damage equal to another equipment you control. So we got a gun. We got our gun. He just goes blow and shoots him. Speaking of shooting people, classic Heartfire hero. He's a 1/1. Whenever he becomes a target of spell ability you control for the first time, which we have plenty, he gets +1/+1 counter, modifies himself. So now he's a 7/5 or whatever counter thing we have on him. And then when he dies, he deals damage equal to his power to each opponent. Hilarious. Love this guy. So good. Lasting Tirefire. This is one of our burn things, but also admittedly a thematic choice for the picture of the Sephiroth that is there. It's from when in Final Fantasy VII when Nibelheim is a flame. It's at the beginning of each step, if you put a counter on a creature this turn, this enchantment shocks everybody for 2. Which it just does 2 damage to everybody. So that's great. Another both flavor win because it's Final Fantasy themed and specifically 7 themed, and it really works with the deck. We have Vincent Vengeful Atoner, 2 colors and a red for a 3/3 with menace. The evasion is nice. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you can put a +1/+1 counter on Vincent, modifying himself if you don't get to put a cell counter on him or modify him in any other way. But whenever he deals combat damage to an opponent, he deals that much damage to each other opponent. If his power is 7 or greater, well, what do you know? Our dude makes his power 7. So that works out awesomely. I believe the Raiju also does burn. Yeah. Why are you not labeled as burn? I'm so prepared for things, I promise. Okay, so Thundering Raiju is also another great standard all-star back in the day for a hot minute. But it's 2 colorless, 2 red for a 3/3 Hasty Spirit. And whenever it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And then Thundering Raiju deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of modified creatures you control, other than Thundering Raiju. So, just kind of similar to Barrett, just another gun, plow plow, lets us shoot pings, shoot our people, our opponents, so make sure that we're winning and stuff. Let's see, we got we got mass life gain. So we got Envoy of the Ancestors, 2 colorless and a white. Just modified creatures we control have lifelink. It has Outlast to put a counter on itself, so it can modify itself. But that's really it. You've seen the deck. Let's go over our removal plan. So this will show, at least highlight the board webs I've been talking about, so you can see that plan. Austere Command, because most of our stuff prior to the combat step is really weak. So we can blow up everything that has power 3 or less. No, 4 or greater. Most of our stuff is going to stay. And then, unless we've really, really gone out of control, but we're not going to blow up the board in that case. So if we're not really like out of control yet, and we don't have any plus counters out, so most of their power is 3 or less, we'll blow up everything that's bigger. Asymmetrical board wipe, take out the board. We have the Thematrical Nibelheim of Flame, because it can choose one of our big dudes and have it hurt everything, but we have ways to give all of our things indestructible, so that protects us from our damage dealing board wipes. Also, like with Ultimate Magic Meteor, thematic with Sephiroth being our commander. But it is also a damage dealing board wipe, so that we have ways to make our stuff indestructible to make sure that we don't lose our things for that. So that's the deck. I do want to show off some of the thematic choices. So the obvious ones, like we got Barrett, we got Vincent. Let's see. Oh, Angel Fire Ignition. I threw in here, because of the whole one-way and Angel part. I wanted to make sure. It also makes modified things. It does a bunch of like cool stuff to like punch through. Because we can also easily kill our commander's a 7/5, so we can get commander damage in as well. But that's largely flavor. Lasting Tar Fire, as I mentioned, is also flavor. Because it could theoretically not be in the deck and maybe make the deck better. But I really like the idea of the card being in there. Ultimate Magic Meteor, obviously big. Nibelheim of Flame. I do like the Soul Ring. I picked, obviously you can use whatever art for Soul Ring you have, but the Soul Ring I picked was from the Final Fantasy Commander decks, and it's specifically Sephiroth talking about the materia. So I'm like, oh, it just works. And that's the deck, y'all. It actually, when I was building this, he seems like such a fun commander. You can take him in so many different directions. If I wasn't trying to be so thematic with it being Sephiroth, I might go more all in on the living weapon theme, because I really, really love that. But I think this deck has a lot of diversity to it to help the living weapon theme be a really cool part of it. But then all the other creatures, because of the ways we have to put counters en masse on things, or at least pretty efficiently dropping counters and stuff all the time to modify creatures. Even our regular creatures that are really just support for artifact and equipment supports a lot of the time can still just become 7/5 threats. So it just makes all of our dudes beaters, and that's awesome. It's a super aggressive deck. I've kind of been making decks where you're going to be the villain. Anyway, it's a good time. I think this is a really fun deck to play. It's less than $40. I highly recommend using Mana Pool and obviously Architect for all of your deck building. It's just so good. Because in case you don't know, I'll show it off right now. Just a little peek if you're not familiar with how great Architect is. You got most browsers can split. Excuse me. So you can take cards from over here. I'll just look up Sephiroth. I can spell and type. Let's grab our Fallen Hero. And this Brea Clan Strata, we'll just put them in here. We'll organize stuff so I can see her and get and take her back out. But you can just picture, boom, and there she is. It's that easy. It's so cool. If you're somehow not familiar with how Architect works at this point, I can't recommend it enough. Uh, it's just so great. And that also works if you're going to use Scryfall to just search up cards and grab them and put them over. You can do the same thing, click and drag the image. It'll put them in the deck list. It's so good. And that's the deck. And a little bit of flavor at the end of it. So thanks for watching. Be excellent to one another and have a good one.